welcome back. Talking Tottenham every week, no better place to be sat. If it's a win, lose, draw, we'll be here for a chat. Best believe we tackle topics like Romero in the back. Heung-min Son, what can go wrong when he's on form? It's a dream come true, so sit back, relax and vibe with us. Special guests every time here to discuss. Bring your passion, come along for the ride, and don't forget to subscribe, cause...
Hello and welcome to another episode of Hollie's Hotspurs Live, where tonight we have a win to talk about, ladies and gents. It's been a little while with international break. We are back with a massive win against West Ham 4-1. And with me to dissect it all and more, I am joined by three fabulous guests. So first of all, Jess, it's amazing to have you on the channel. How are you?
I'm good. I'm just sat here smiling because the intro, I noticed this before when I had a little listen to the pod, is our guy Forms. Would recognise him anywhere, played him on my radio show. Look, Hollie, thank you so much for having me on. I'm buzzing. I'm buzzing after the weekend.
Indeed. It's long lasting as well. Like I say, we were talking off air how depressing it is sometimes to have to dissect a loss. But tonight we can talk about a win and them lot as well, popping some bubbles. So it's great to have you on, Jess. As well, we're joined by Ben. Ben, how are you, my friend?
Yeah, very good, thank you. It's nice to actually come on and talk about a win, because I feel like last time I came on was the North London derby, and then I don't feel like I've got a great record of actually coming on here after we've won a game. So it's nice to come on and talk about us smashing West Ham. But yeah, thanks for having me on. Looking forward to getting into it.
No worries. It's going to be a fun one to dissect, I think. And also, as well, we're joined by Jay. Jay, it's nice to have you back on. How are you?
Yeah, not bad. It's been a while. Good. It was nice to win West Ham's cup final at the weekend. So that's one trophy for the season. But yeah, what a performance. Well happy.
Defo. I guess it's a bounce back as well, but we'll probably get into it a little bit in a minute. But first of all, I want to say a big thank you, obviously, to the sponsors of Hollie's Hotspur Live. That is the Tabletop. You can go and visit their website and go get cards, board games, you name it. They have it stocked. So go check them out. But without further ado, let's crack on what we're really here for, and that is to dissect a brilliant win. Now, Jess, I'll come to you first. How did you kind of find the game? Well, how were you feeling afterwards?
Yeah, it was good. So, I don't always get to go on a Saturday. I'm going to put it out there for everyone or anyone who doesn't know me at all. I usually talk about music, not so much sport as per se, but I've been doing a little bit more in terms of like a couple podcasts, a couple little interviews. And speaking of which, I started my day by actually chatting to Becky Ives and Crouchy on TNT Sport before the game. And yeah, sorry, girls. I missed my hockey game for that. Kind of skipped it. But it was worth it. A 4-1 win as well. And my girls won 4-0 as well. So it kind of seemed like they didn't actually need me. But before we went live as well, Ben mentioned, I think it was you, Ben, saying that it's not often that we come from such a big win in a London derby, but also that other North London team. Massive loss. Yeah. This is just all-round chef's kiss for Spurs. I can't lie.
It has been a brilliant weekend. And like I say, it was great to see you on TNT. I was like, wow, I've got her on Monday and she's been on the telly. Yeah. What a win. But no, it was great to obviously see you on TNT and obviously, again, to get a result as well in the fashion we did. But Ben, I'll come to you. How did you kind of feel it as well? Obviously, 4-1 win, bing, bang, bosh. We needed that comeback, obviously, after the Brighton defeat. How did you feel?
Yeah, I mean, like Jess kind of said there, if Carlsberg did weekends, it'd be a pretty good one, that wouldn't it? With Arsenal losing as well. And also, it's so great to win the early kickoff because you can just dine out on it for the rest of the weekend. You can just put your feet up and watch everything else happen. And everything else went pretty well for Spurs. But I was pretty nervous going into the game just because, obviously coming off the back of the Brighton defeat, after kind of building that momentum, it felt like everything just sort of came to a bit of a halt, especially with how well we played in the first half compared to how poorly we played in the second. And it really felt like we needed a response. So, of course, we'd be under pressure to do that. And, yeah, West Ham's record, obviously, at the new ground is pretty decent, even though they've been poor, obviously, so far this season. But it was so satisfying just to take them apart in the second half the way that we did. I think, and again, obviously, a lot of credit goes to Ange for the change that he made at half-time. I thought we were playing pretty well in the first half anyway. It was just about kind of knocking on the door. West Ham were obviously going to sit up to try and frustrate us. And obviously, they've got a threat on the counter-attack in like Bowen and Kudus, who were their standouts by a mile. But yeah, I felt as if it would come anyway. Like I felt that we were knocking. I felt that we were playing well. But yeah, it was so satisfying just to do them like that. Like Jay said, it's their cup final, and 4-1 on their big day out. So it was a pretty decent Saturday.
It was decent, and obviously Jay had to endure it with me at the pub watching it, and he knows I can get a bit lively when Spurs aren't quite winning the way that they are kind of in the first half, and then we kind of brought it back. So Jay, how did you kind of feel the overall of the match?
Yeah, well, we watched it with a West Ham fan, so that was particularly enjoyable. So Joe, if you are watching the stream, yes, it still happened. But yeah, no, yeah, it was good. It was obviously a lot of nerves. It's one of the few fixtures that I get nervous for every year, along with the North London derby. I know, we big it up as a cup final, but for me personally, I care if we lose to West Ham. So it was nice just to put on a performance towards the end. It was a little bit nervy. I still think we played well the first half. I don't think, like Ben kind of said, I did see us winning the game, but obviously coming off the Brighton game as well, it was always that no matter how well we played, we were probably the best performance we've had this year in the first half of that Brighton game, and then threw it all away in the second half. So no matter how well we played, there was always that fear. So it was quite nice to put it to bed in the second half. And the West Ham fan that was sat behind us wasn't there to watch it, so I was gutted because we had to endure him cheering in the first half.
I know. I think as soon as that goal went in for Spurs, he went off because he knew I was going to give it some to him. But luckily for him, but
that was a bit like their away end. To be fair, I was going to say I don't think I've ever seen an away end filter out that quickly when it went to 4-1, and there's still about half an hour left. And I don't really blame them. To be fair,
it's not even a long trip. It's not even a long trip home.
No, I actually was surprised that there was still 30 minutes left because everyone was waving them goodbye, and we were like, "Okay, see ya." And then I looked, and it actually was. I was like, okay.
No, like I say, it was a great performance from Spurs. Obviously, Jess, coming to you first. It seems weird. I feel less nervous when we go a goal behind in the first half than I do when we're actually winning. For me, it was just frustrating because obviously the goal we kind of conceded from West Ham was kind of a goal we've seen a number of times at the moment. What do you kind of put it down to? Is it just kind of lack of communication at the back? Is it switching off, do you think?
I actually think there's a lot of chat around us having this young team, inexperienced team, like XYZ. It does annoy me a little bit how it feels like every single game it takes us a minute to get settled. That was a really early goal. They tried it once already, and then they did the exact same thing and managed to score from it. And it's like, I don't get why it takes the squad to gel in a way to realise, like, no, actually that can't happen anymore. Like those two, like you were saying, Jared and Kudos were the best on their team by a country mile. And then you could tell by the end of it, they were frustrated and rattled. Like anyone who touches Van der Ven's face, honestly, needs to get out of our stadium anyway. But it's just, I don't know. I think I don't want to say the word that we're all thinking, but it is very classic Spurs, let's just say, to go down to the point where we now don't even feel that uncomfortable with going down on an early lead. In fact, actually, we trust our team a bit more when we don't go up early, like we did in the Brighton game. I think that what we're currently building is we're working towards like a bigger picture. And in the lead up to that and in the training towards that, whether that is young and less experienced players, whether that is dusting yourself off and picking yourself up and like gelling in the way that we want to, because our tactics are forward football, attacking football, and it means that sometimes it leaves gaps. And I think that's where this tactical switch of Madders and Sarr just worked really, really well, because I think we're now in a position where we have the luxury of a choice of bench and a choice of tactics, and not just this is our first string, these are because players are tired or injured. We now have choice tactically. So again, everyone being like, oh, but to be fair, Madders didn't play badly. He didn't. There was like a stat that in the entire of the Premier League, he like make the most chances within the first half. But the problem is a player like him thrives off us, I don't know, being more in control in the centre. And when things get a bit more frustrating, maybe you do need someone like Sarr who helps out Basuma, which then filters to the rest of the team. And it just allowed Kulu to do what he does best, really. But I think, in answer to your question, I think we're building towards something bigger, and this is us still working on it and working through it.
No, definitely. And I think I'll kind of echo that as well, because obviously Ben just makes a good point, obviously, of that tactical substitution at half time, because there was a lot of fans giving Andrew a lot of criticism in that Brighton game for not shutting shop and getting it done. And I think his reason after the game was he said that Sarr has a bit more legs within that midfield, and it kind of bared true, didn't it, in that second half?
Yeah, definitely. It's perhaps Sarr is just such a cheat code off the bench, especially how I was talking about this on my podcast earlier. It's kind of like, especially how fresh we're keeping him because he's not really playing in the league. He's kind of starting those games in Europe. For him to come on, to run and dictate that second half like he did, win the ball back. And look, like we said there, like Maddison wasn't playing poorly in that first half at all. West Ham was set up to try and nullify the threat of him, of Sonny, of Kulusevski. But it just wasn't quite working. And they've got strength and power in that midfield and they can hurt us on the break. So having someone like Papsar there just to kind of win those duels, sweep everything up, and then be able to run with the ball or play the ball forward quickly and us to play on the front foot and hit him on the break was a masterstroke. And look, everyone kind of says that, like you said there, everyone gives Ange a lot of criticism for not really adapting, and maybe I think that's probably a fair criticism maybe in the Brighton game, although I still think that was more on the players in that one. But yeah, he's kind of disproved that time and time again, and that was a masterstroke at half time to bring him on. It just gave us so much, like Ange said it himself, like the running power that he's got. I think he was involved in obviously Sonny's goal to win the ball back and play that pass, and then straight after where Sonny had that chance to make it 5-1 when we hit the post. When you look back at it, Tadebo's got the ball. They're trying to play out. They go back to the goalkeeper from the goal kick. Tadebo gets the ball. He tries to play out. And as soon as he's playing the pass, if you look at Sarr, he reads it straight away. And he's on, I think it was Soler that he tried to play the ball into. He's on him, just gives him a shove in the back, wins the ball back, and then we were in again. He's just, and like I said earlier, with the fact that he's not really playing that much in the league, he's so fresh to come on in those games and then start again in Europe because he's kind of quietly having a really impactful season, even without starting every week. And we have to rest and rotate and manage this squad as best as possible with the amount of games that we've got. And look, one of my obviously I think James Maddison's had a good season for us. Definitely, I think we've seen a more consistent Madders to what we saw in the second half of last season in a different role as well. He's been asked to do different things. He's playing that little bit deeper. He's kind of dovetailing with Kulusevski in there. And I think one of the things that actually has really improved a lot in Maddison's game is his pressing and is his off the ball work, like what we saw with Sarr. So I think that we probably still would have maybe won the game with Maddison on the pitch anyway. He's always going to be able to produce something. And I thought it was, like Jess said there, I think he created more chances in the first half than any player did in the entire 90 minutes of any other Premier League game this weekend. So he was influential, but that game just required something else. Ange spotted that, and we went on to just tear them apart. So full credit to Ange for that. And I think, like I said, with him not starting a lot in the league, I think Papsar is going to be massive for us this season, because if we go deep in Europe and then maybe one or two of the cups, hopefully, maybe, we could be playing 60 odd games this season. So to have him with that running power that he's got, that engine that he's got, is going to be massive for Spurs.
I think, can I just quickly add to this as well? Madders, I think it was done the perfect way round, because Madders is our vice captain. He's experienced. He does what he does. He's like a big impact, a big voice on the pitch. You're never going to leave him on his own, like if we're thinking of the other team. To have Sarr come in halfway through is so impactful in the other team as well, because they got used to Madders. They got used to playing against him. They got used to what he wanted to do and where he wanted to run. Now you've got Sarr, who I think is criminally underrated as well. And I think also as someone who's like, I don't know, when I'm playing sport, when I'm playing a team sport, if there's someone young and leggy, I think, yeah, they're young and leggy, but I underestimate them. Yeah. And the fact that he can come on halfway through when you're already 45 minutes into a game, more than that, then I think it was just like a really perfectly timed change. Yeah.
Definitely. And I think with a player like Sarr as well, the fact that he's underrated is his age, the fact that he's ready, raring to come on at half time and can do so in such an impactful way is a true credit to him as well. But Jay, I want to talk about another engine in our team, and a player that's got a lot of praise recently and is one that is granted because he has been incredible, and that is that man, Decky. How have you found Decky and how influential he has been in that middle of the park?
I think it was an interview towards the end of last season saying about he preferred to play through the middle because there was that time when Maddison was out and he was playing there and he's saying how much he enjoys it. I mean, you can really tell that, the way he dribbles and the way that he's not the fastest, but I hope Wes isn't watching, but the way he glides past players reminds me of Dembele in the sense that he's not fast, but he just seems to always make the right decision, turn the right way. And even when a player catches him, I've seen him a couple of times, like a player will catch him from behind and he'll be able to push them off and then give himself another 10 yards. And it's just that strength. And in the middle, you don't need as much speed as you would on the wing. So now, all those turns and flicks, and it looks like the chemistry's there. I love the fact that we're starting with 2 10s at the minute. This Maddison Kulusevski, it's really attacking, really bold. But going back to what we said earlier and what Ben's already said, a lot of people, I saw imposter no clue floating around on Twitter and that sort of stuff. And how can we expect him to progress in the Premier League if he doesn't learn from his lessons? And I think Brighton was a lesson for him. I agree with Ben also that the players have a lot of onus to take from that performance, but also to identify that, okay, West Ham are having chances on the break. Maddison isn't creating as much as we'd like. Let's change something up. And to identify and to change that, it showed it worked. And Decky looks freer when Maddison isn't playing. I want them both to be able to play together, and there were, intricate flicks and stuff, but he just looks like a totally different player through the middle. And it also, if Ange wanted to change the tactical system, having a player like Kulusevski means that he can change it on the fly. If he wants to move Decky out wide, he can, and Madders can play through the middle by himself. So to have a unique player like that and to have a real engine as well, and I think because of his strength and the way he plays, it makes everyone else play harder around him, and which is what we need. But what a player, man. What a player.
He is class. Oh, sorry, go on, Ben.
I was going to say, it's for me as well, like, it's his mentality as much as anything. Like, you hear him speak after the game on TNT, and it was like, as soon as I got the equaliser, I knew we were going to go on and win. I think he's just like, for someone I think he's 24, and obviously still relatively young in football terms, even though he's had a lot of experience at the top level, was obviously at Juve and then obviously came to Spurs. So he's been at 2 big clubs and under big managers. He's so mature in the way that he speaks, so mature in the way that he kind of acts on the pitch as well. He just gets stuck in, gets on with everything. He's like, there's footballers out there that people kind of call unicorns. They've got this like rare set of very unique skills that when you look at him, it doesn't really make sense. Like, it's just, he obviously didn't quite work for him as a winger in Ange's system. Did more so under Conte, because where we played with the wing backs, it meant that Kulusevski could come inside a lot more and actually play kind of as a 10 behind Kane. He's that adaptation. And like, I think, I can't remember who said it. I think, Jay, you might have said it, that he did an interview towards the end of last season, was like, I want to play there. And I think I was reading some interview quotes with him just before he came on. It was just like, the level of, like, in terms of my responsibility, what I've done in training and everything has just gone up another level this season. It's like, he almost just like saw that opportunity for him, because he played really well in pre-season, playing through the middle. He's playing at striker. He kind of played everywhere a little bit, really. He just saw that opportunity and just grabbed it. And I think, like you said, like, Dembele is such an interesting comparison, because Dembele was able to beat players so well and shrug them off, and he didn't have the pace necessarily, but try and get near him and try and tackle him, it's impossible. But Kulusevski's got the end product on top of that as well. Like, he's just such a special footballer that's producing moments in big games for us as well, grabbing games by the scruff of the neck. I've always said with him, like, last season when Maddison was out injured during that period from like November post that Chelsea game, we had a lot of tough away games, and the amount of times that Kulusevski, like Forest away, City away, where he got that last minute equaliser, the amount of moments that he's just like grabbed when the chips are down for us and put the team on his back. He's a special footballer. And to think there was some of our fan base wanted him sold in the summer, which is mental, really, just because he's not the quickest or not, like, he's a special footballer and a special guy, I think, as well, really. So lucky to have him.
Oh, 100%. I think, again, the stats, I'm not one for always talk about stats, but he is literally the highest in all of those kind of stats across the Premier League and sometimes in Europe as well at the moment, which is just madness. But Jess, the goal for me was just the icing on the cake. I mean, I was a bit nervous when it hit the other post. I was like, it has to go in. But what did you make of that finish from it?
Yeah, our viewpoint was pretty high up. I was in like 5 something, and I was like looking down, and when it hit the first post, we were like, oh my God, is that even in? And then like curled in on the other side, and we were like, yeah, it was like belated celebrating. But I think he really deserved it. I think that, again, he's such a hard worker. I think actually some of his like work ethic, obviously not style of play, but like his work ethic, or maybe some similarities, but his commitment to it just kind of reminds me a bit of Harry Kane.
Yeah.
Like I remember there was some interviews that Harry would do, and he'd just be like perfecting his craft. And even though he knew he wasn't the fastest, he knew that if he could perfect the things that he could control, then he could get there as a player. And did you say it was 24?
24, yeah. Yeah, I think
That's
so.
just, it does blow my mind. I think sometimes we forget how young some of the team are. And Decky always isn't the loudest, but he's always like, he's vocal in a way where he knows what he's saying. He's got his head on his shoulders, and he's not, I don't know. I just feel like he's serious about it, but in a good way. And I think we need that on the pitch. I think in the Brighton game, I heard some people talking about it, and they were like, there was no one to really like bring the team together. And I think when we've got such a young team, and then you've got players like Madders who play a bit better when things are going good, but obviously when they're not going good, I think he gets in his own head. I think we missed Son that game. I think this is where all the chips sort of fell in the right way. This was a game where we're like playing at our like most. There's so much joy in what we did on that pitch. It felt like there was so many different options as well. Like Cooley was having the best game, but you weren't going to leave Son on his own. Solanke, even though he wasn't on the score sheet, he's on top form. He's doing so much. He's holding up the ball. Like if you watched him at any point, he didn't look lost. He was playing a role. And Brennan Johnson, again, that would have been like literally the cherry on top of the cake if he was on the score sheet. But again, he was creating chances. There was no way in hell that they were going to leave him on his own. There was only one player, and I don't really want to name him, but I guess you might know who I'm going to talk about, that I think looked a little bit lost, and I think he's been a bit lost, obviously, Werner. But he was on for a bit, and I think it was actually good that he came on, because I think it shows that Ange is still back him. He's clearly doing the right things in training, because he wouldn't be on the pitch, let's be real. There's just something going on there which we can't see / don't know about. Also good to see Richie back as well, very briefly, but he got a very, very big cheer when he came on, which was nice.
Definitely. I think you're right. I think all the chips kind of fell at the right place. And Jay, coming to you, because there was obviously a moment of madness. I think it was like 8 minutes when everything kind of all came together, when Basuma scored, and then obviously we had that own goal, and then a marvellous kind of goal from Sonny. What did you kind of make of that period? Does that kind of emphasise what Spurs are trying to do at the moment?
Well, it emphasised all of the criticism that our fan base and have had of the team were answered in that brief spell, but just need to be extended across the game. The clinicalness, the relentlessness, let's go and kill the game. Let's not, have half chances. Every chance that we have needs to be a scoring opportunity. And that showed when we're clinical and players are confident, seeing Basuma drive towards the edge of the box just at the right time to strike it, that kind of confidence, and even the composure. I think he put it through Kilman's legs. Just to slot it in. It's that clinicalness that we've lacked, and where we've dropped points a lot this season has been from that. So to have that period and to just not stop, because we could have stopped after the third goal went in, because West Ham probably weren't going to. Well, actually, it was 2 days after a couple of years ago that Lanzini scored that goal when we were 3-0 up. So 3-1 maybe wasn't a safe scoreline against them lot. But yeah, it's just, I think it answered a lot of questions, and I think it would have done kind of what Jess was saying. I would have liked Werner to get on the clean, on the score sheet in a big game like that. But yeah, with Timo, it's just, he's a Spurs player, so I'll back him until the end. But I don't know. He came on, and I found myself going, "Oh, why are we bringing him on?" Like Mikey looks a lot better when he comes on, and he looked good in Europe. And you spoke about missing Son, Jess, in the Brighton game. If Son plays that game, we're probably 5-0 up at half time rather than 3-0 up, 2-0 up. Sorry. So yeah, he just needs a goal. And look what happened to Brenton. Everyone talks about Kulusevski's great goal, but who was 1 inch away from it as it was rolling across the goal line? Brennan Johnson was there, ready to make sure it went in. And I think Werner needs that kind of spirit and that mentality. And I hope, maybe that'll inspire him and show him that, okay, you can go through rough patches and the fans might get on your back, but all it takes is a couple of good performances to turn your form around and get the support of the fans back. But yeah, that 10 minutes was absolutely crazy. And it made, like Ben said before the show, the fact of playing the 12:30 kickoff and winning, it just made that weekend so much better and not have to worry for the rest of the weekend.
No, definitely. And I think that's the thing. Obviously, those 10 minutes were mad. It was annoying and gutting that Werner can get on the score sheet as well. But Ben, I want to talk about Sonny, because obviously there was a lot of criticism before he kind of had his injury that it wasn't the Sonny we used to know, but he looked like a breath of fresh air, like the old Sonny at the weekend. Do you think it's potentially because he's had that kind of break to be able to chill out, sort of thing?
Potentially, yeah. I mean, obviously he missed, what was it, the last 2 games before the international break, obviously United and then Brighton. But aside, obviously I can't remember the last time that he didn't go on international duty either. So the fact that he's had kind of 4 weeks basically to be fresh for this game, and it was the sharpest I think he's looked in a while, really. I think he's had a decent season up until this point as well. Like, he obviously, the Everton game, he got a couple of goals in that. Sometimes I think in this system, with the way that, half the time, obviously, Ange wants him to kind of be a touchline winger that stays wide and beats his man 1v1 to allow a doggy to come inside. I actually thought their relationship on Saturday was the best I've seen it in a while as well. They really kind of seemed to understand each other. There was the chance that Sonny had in the first half where he wrapped it just past the post, where he just gave Wan-Bissaka the little sort of shimmy and got away from him. That was old Sonny, really, wasn't it? And that was, you could sort of tell that, and obviously with the goal as well, 3 step overs to do to Debo and then just finishes it on his left foot. And he's got that such unpredictability when he goes for on goal because of how 2-footed he is. You don't really want to put him on either, so he's just going to put you in a spin, and that's exactly what he did. But that chance where he wrapped it just around the post in the first half, it starts from him kind of getting to the edge of the box and the doggy actually going around him, and then Spurs sort of work it back to a position where Sonny can stand his man up 1v1 on the edge of the box and get a shot away. And it's like, if we can get Sonny in a lot more of those positions, then he's going to be so much more effective. And actually, if you look at the way that Werner had been playing in the Brighton and United game, obviously he missed 2 1-on-1 opportunities at Old Trafford. There was that chance in the first minute of the Brighton game where he got played through and that quality of ball to Johnson wasn't quite there. Sonny buries both of those chances at Old Trafford. There was one in the Europa League as well against Ferencváros where he tried to go around the keeper. Sonny buries that. So I think the way that we've kind of changed the system this year, where our fullbacks aren't coming inside as much, it's a little bit more varied, especially down Sonny's side. It's actually allowing Sonny to be really effective because you haven't really got the fullback kind of getting in his way. You want Sonny, the fact that he's obviously 32 now, you don't want him to do as much intense running all the time. So to be able to get him into more central positions where he can do what he does best, like he did on Saturday, then that's going to be the benefit. Because, the thing is for Sonny, we've just got to be careful how we manage him, because he's not a player that gets many injuries. Obviously, picked up that injury against Karabag that saw him out for 2 games, and then the international break obviously happened in which he was able to rest. But, on Thursday, you don't necessarily really want to see him start in that game. But when he's at his best, he is still so important to us. And I think it must have been quite nice for him, because I'd imagine, a lot of these players aren't necessarily on social media and stuff, but I'd imagine they can probably feel the criticism and feel people saying that, oh, he's not quite the same Sonny as he was before, doesn't look quite as sharp. And I think that was quite a nice, just stick a bit of a middle finger up to people who were kind of doubting him, because this is a guy that's, I think on the weekend he moved into the top 20 Premier League goal scorers of all time, and he could have easily had another goal for the one that was the own goal. So he could have been walking away with 2 goals in that one. And
that's such a shame that wasn't his, because it was so good as well. So.
I know, but that goal to me just summed up how effective our attack can be, because they're obviously so worried about Solanke. I thought Solanke was excellent in that second half, by the way, as well. Brennan Johnson, those are the 2 players that are kind of being marked in the box. We're able to turn the ball over quickly. Sonny plays it into Kulu. Kulu's where he's able to slow it down. He's just got such a great picture of what he wants to do. They've left Son free, the best one-on-one finisher probably in the league. He just comes around the back, makes such a good run. Kulu picks him out, and obviously we get a bit of luck with it going in, but we deserve that luck. So I think a lot of the work that Solanke's doing, a lot of the work that Kulusevski is doing as well, is just freeing up so many more opportunities for Johnson and Son, who are so good 1v1 and such good finishers in those situations, that I just think this attack is going to score a lot of goals. And if we can manage Sonny, well with his fitness, not play him so much in the other cups and the Europa League and stuff. Give those opportunities to more. Odebear's coming back this week as well. Hopefully, fingers crossed, for him to be really effective in the league games. And then if we do go through in the Europa League, the latter stages of that, then I think he's going to... We got 27 goal contributions last year. Like, not much has changed in a few months. So I think he's still going to be massively effective for us this year.
Definitely. And obviously, I think as well, he obviously hit 250 goal contributions for the club well at the weekend. So Jess, he's just an all-round baller, isn't he? And I think the thing is, having that little bit of break has kind of, I think it's been a bit of a good time for him to kind of sit back and be like, right, if I want to play as much football as I want, or I want to be able to be at my best, maybe I shouldn't play as many games, if that makes sense.
How much choice, though, do you think, especially as a captain, like how much choice of that do you have? And also, I remember there was a time, was it last season, maybe the season before, where he was injured and he played whilst he was injured and everyone was criticising him for not doing as well. But the problem is like people like that feel the pressure, especially with his captain band, especially when he probably is watching very closely when he's not playing and what happens then. I don't know. I think that we do need to look after him. I think that there are people who are, I hope they listen to these podcasts as well. There are people who are in care of people like that. It's the same with musicians and their mental health and stuff like that. There are people in positions of care, and they're the ones who actually need to say to them really seriously, actually, you need to not just take a break and not be vague about it, but be like, maybe you need to play like less minutes this game, or maybe you need to be subbed this game, or maybe you need to not start, because unless you have like a medical professional or someone around you who really cares about you and telling you that, as a footballer, especially one, if we do keep talking about his age and his shelf life, he's not going to want to take any time off. Like, he'll feel that pressure. So I don't know. I'm a Sonny super fan, so the fact that we're even talking about having him less on the pitch makes me really upset. But like, I do agree. You can't be running people into the ground, especially when we have so much choice, like the luxury of choice now. Yeah. And I don't know, we've got some young blood as well, like people that we want to see on the pitch a bit more, Mikey Moore and Archie and Bergvall. But yeah, I think that Ange is doing it in the right way, in that people are like, oh, why don't we bring these new young people on early? But you can't do that. Like, look what it's done to people like Brennan, where they're young and they come on and they're not experienced and they're not used to the impact of maybe one bad game, because our fans are very vocal and very fickle, and sometimes it feels like we're playing against them instead of the other teams.
Yeah.
No,
also, there's been, sorry, I was just going to say on that, there's been so many, like, if you look at Mikey, who's 17, there's so many young players who have played, like Kobbie Mainoo for Man United, like Adam Wharton at Palace, like, have kind of been running to the ground over the last year, gone away with England over the summer, and Mainoo's now out for like 7 weeks because United just haven't managed him properly. Like, same as Yamal at Barcelona, like, he had to pull out the Spain squad because of like load management. It's a lot of work to put on these young players, and look, we all want to see him, and hopefully Thursday is a good opportunity to do that. He showed that he's trusted Mikey Moore to start these games. Will Lancashire obviously as well, but they're good enough. If they're good enough, they're old enough, and they're good enough to play. But at the same time, they're the ones that you really have to. It's kind of the both ends of the spectrum, isn't it? Players who are kind of getting to the end of maybe their best, which, I mean, we said about Sonny, but like the numbers that you're still putting up are insane. And then people at the start of their career, those are the ones that you really have to like make sure that you don't overwork them. So I think we're doing it the right way at the moment.
No, I think so as well. Obviously, I was a bit frustrated when Paul Werner came on the pitch, and I was a bit like, I wish Mikey Moore would come on. It's probably the perfect opportunity. We're up. We've only conceded one so far. Like, stick him in. I mean, Jay, are you kind of on the idea of maybe European football's the place for him, or do you think that probably was the best time to play him, or could we have seen Werner? Was that the better option?
Oh, I think. Obviously, talking about load management, everyone would think, with the European fixtures being back for us now, that it would actually be a bigger problem. But I think it's kind of a pro for us, because it's giving players that aren't playing on Saturday a chance to play in the week and get match fitness against, okay, it might not be the level of the Premier League, but the physicality, you're playing against teams from Hungary, teams from Netherlands, teams from Azerbaijan, you're not playing against fancy tiki-taka teams, you're playing against, some real rough teams, and giving that experience once a week to younger players who should have the ability to be able to beat those teams, but not maybe the physicality. You see it at all levels of football. From Sunday League all the way up. There'll always be that 18-year-old or 16-year-old that will play for his dad's pub team and get he could be the best footballer in the world, but he's going to get kicked the crap out of that first game, and that's going to be an education for him. And like Ben was saying about running these young players into the ground, if you're doing that to them Thursday, Saturday, how long before, like Mainu, there's a big injury? How long before? And also the problem as a culture that we have with these young players is not taking our time with them. You look at someone like Kobbie Mainoo, there's a lot of hype around him. Bang, he's in the England squad. Do you know, it's like he is a good player and he probably should have been in the squad on merit. But I also think that there has got to be that caution with these players. And as much as I want, Will Lancashire to come into the squad and score 50 goals a season, because he done that for me in Football Manager, I don't think he's going to do it in real life. But the day he does score, I will be giving it to my mates because I've been talking about him for a while. But yeah, I think.
Can I just also add to this quickly as well? Like, think about this. They're 17, yeah. What were you doing at 17? I was still at school, and I then even into uni was still just such a baby. Like, if I think about where my head was at, what things used to embarrass me at that time, what things I cared about, what life moments or big moments happened during that time that still impact me over 10 years later. Like, those are memories. Like, your brain is still forming like big impact memories. Like, I think it's really tricky to throw people in the deep end, not just physically but also mentally. Like, these are moments that they're going to live with forever, and that includes in the public eye as well. It's not just on the pitch.
That goes back to what you were saying earlier as well about having the right people in your ears at the club and having those conversations with those players. More might be sat there looking at someone like Mainu saying, "Oh, look at Mainu, he's playing every week. I'm being touted as this wonder kid, and I'm starting behind Timo Werner." Do you know what I mean? It's like it seems like to me, and we spoke a lot about it last year, but it's vibes at the club at the minute. Within the squad, outside the squad, it's the usual conundrum of stupid fans, clever fans, all fans that have opinions on everything, all of that stuff. But within the club, it seems like it's a bubble. And it seems like, even when Maddison went off at the weekend, you could tell he was frustrated, but then you cut over and they're laughing and joking on the bench. Do you know what I mean? I think everyone within that squad gets the plan. We as fans might not get it at times. We might not understand it. However, I think the people that are important that get it, and that's the players. An example is, I know it's the wrong example to use, but like Dragusin, for example, is a player that would probably start for, I don't know, most of the teams outside the top 6 in the Premier League, probably. And he's not had a sniff at starting in the Premier League squad this year. And then he's given a chance in the Europa League. And, well, we all know what happened there. But still, it seems like that was always the plan. And with, like Ben said earlier, with these cup runs that might happen and with this all, I think the players believe that they'll have a chance if they perform. And I think Angie's sticking to that. We're talking about Mikey. I reckon Mikey will start on Thursday. And it's that load management. It's okay, Mikey didn't come on at the weekend, but that's because we're playing against RZ on Thursday. That'll be a chance for him to prove himself. And that's how it is. And we've already got 2 wins under our belt in the Europa League. So we can afford to make those chances for these young players.
No, and I think it's well said by all of you in the sense that even like what Design said as well, that the fact that we're gradually giving Mikey more minutes. As much as we want him to come on, be this star boy, we need to remember that his age, because I think we kind of forget with his talent how young he really is. But Ben, talking about probably not young, but maybe a young mentality, it was obviously because there was a red card at the weekend, and I've been excited to talk about this one because obviously Jess mentioned earlier, don't square up to Mickey Van der Ven and then slap him in the face. But then you go and do it to Sarr as well. What did you make of it all?
I mean, I love the fact that Sarr just didn't react. He pushed him fully in the face, and Sarr just firmed it. Like, I'm not saying that Van der Ven and Richarlison did the wrong thing by going to ground because, also in the age of VAR, he was obviously always going to get sent off. But do you know what? It was quite satisfying in a way because I know people had their own different opinions about the Bruno Fernandes red card against us a few weeks ago, but I can think of now 3 times in the last 6 months, going back to the Villa game in March, where we've had 3 players sent off against us for kind of just like lashing out. And I think that's almost kind of a bit of a compliment in a way, because I think we're at that stage now where obviously we have our moments, we have our little blips, some bigger than others. But I think when things are going really well at Spurs, when it's clicks, we are very, very good and really hard to play against, demonstrated by the fact that we just blitzed West Ham away in 10 minutes in that second half. And it was almost like they just couldn't get near us and couldn't handle us. So that's kind of what they resort to. Same thing at Villa away last year with McGinn. And then Bruno Fernandes as well. We were playing them off the park, and all it takes is one hot-headed player. I think Kudus was probably a little bit frustrated because he was their best player. Like him and Bowen, Kudus was the only one that actually looked like hurting us. And Jared Bowen, obviously, but I think Bowen's probably got a bit of a cooler head. But yeah, it was crazy. Like, it was absolutely crazy in an age where he had it could have been 3 red cards. And, he might even get because he did it 2 or 3 times. He obviously kicked Van de Ven twice, then pushed him in the face, then pushed Sarr in the face. He might get an extended ban as well. It was just so ridiculous. But I kind of take the side of it of I don't mind if people want to do that to us, because it shows that we're just a level above you. That's kind of how I look at it.
It is quite comical because Van de Ven is obviously so tall and long. I actually think he got him in the face, but it's because he can't really
yeah.
It's just the way he pushed it. Van de Ven is literally just like this.
Yeah, then, just holding a child's head.
Why would you? You're in HD television and there's a whole stadium of people watching you. What are you doing?
Do you know what as well? I think we've got quite good at that. I remember the United red card. Do you know where Johnson went up to Fernandes and was like, "You're stupid." You saw Van de Ven. That was Van de Ven's reaction when he got up. He just pointed at Kudus and was like, "What are you doing?" And then he just lost it. And it was just I think we're quite good at like I said, in terms of playing teams off the park, getting under their skin a little bit. But we've got some characters in that team that are just and of course, Richarlison was involved in that. He got got
sly wind-ups. Of course, Rich had to be involved.
I watched it back because I was when I was. Obviously, it all happens so quickly when you're at the game, and when you actually watch it back, I think Richie just gets someone's shoulder, just he backs into him. It's like a complete accident, and he's just there on the floor. I was just
I think it hits him. It does hit him in the head, but he didn't need to.
No.
Well, drama, of course. Yeah, exactly. Of course, the drama. The
best thing to come out was all the players on the bench watching it on the screen and absolutely creasing up when they saw Richarlison jump on the floor.
Yeah.
That was unreal.
I saw Forster. It was Forster, wasn't it? Son was watching it, being what's going how is that not a red card? And then Forster was just looking at it, just laughing. It was just you have to, especially to do that in a derby. Like I said as well, I think we've got that ability to kind of get under team's skin, play them off the park, and then in those moments we can just kind of just wind them up a bit. So I enjoyed that.
No, it was good fun. Obviously, the favourite thing afterwards was all the memes, obviously on Twitter, of Kudos sitting on the chair going, "Yeah, mate, you're going to need that chair for the next couple of weeks." I think that was my favourite thing to come out of it. But no, it was a brilliant, obviously, 4-1 win. There probably could have been a couple more goals for us. Obviously, that Sonny chance as well, where he hits the post, etc. But it was lovely to pop some bubbles at the weekend. But obviously, we have to turn our attention to Thursday because, Jess, we are at home and we are playing, obviously, AZ, I always say it wrong, but we are playing them at home. So how do you kind of feel this one going down?
I think just to echo what Jay's been saying about us, even though normally we'd be extra games and we'd be worried because normally our bench is this thin. But at the minute we've got so many players that we're really excited about that you can't chuck in the deep end in things like a London derby. It just doesn't really work like that. And again, it's make or break for someone like that's career, make or break for their mentality, their physicality, for what people think of them. Because if you think about every minute that they're on that pitch, we're forming our first impressions of them. And at the minute, it's really good. But then again, and just probably maintaining egos a little bit as well, 17 years old, going on to a Premier League team. One like Tottenham as well, with some of the best facilities, they're levelling up. I think Thursday can be really exciting. I don't know much about the other team though, so I can't comment on that. But yeah, definitely excited to see some of the young'uns play.
Definitely. Jay, I'll come to you because obviously there's one player that is a familiar face at Tottenham, and that is Mr. Troy Parrott. So how do you kind of see, obviously he's going to be up for the game, no doubt. How do you kind of see that one going down? That's kind of stopping him from scoring.
Well, I spoke about Will Lancashire being my Football Manager icon this year, but Troy Parrott was that a couple of years ago, and now he's playing for RZ, and he's no longer a Spurs player. So I hope he doesn't follow that same route. But obviously, AZ are fifth in the league. They've lost the last three, and they lost their Europa League game against Bilbao. They did win against Bodo Glimt, but yeah, I think seeing Troy he's going to have a point to prove, obviously, and if, for example, if Will Lancashire starts, it's going to be an even bigger in his eyes, an even bigger insult. You've got someone younger, someone less experienced who's being given the chance in this thing. But also it could work the other way. If he has that mentality and Will scores or we start winning, Troy will be like, oh, okay, maybe maybe it wasn't for me. But he scored 4. He scored 6 total this season, and he scored 4 of them in one game where AZ won 9-1. So he's actually scored in 3 separate matches. So he's not lighting the world on fire. But again, if we want to win this competition, these are teams that we need to beat, and these are teams that not to be complacent. And I think Karabag really showed us this with the competition, and is that we can't be complacent against these teams. And the players that play can't be playing just out of, it's Thursday, so we're giving the youngers a chance. It needs to be, okay, we're giving the players that we need to play the chance to play, and they need to win and perform, because otherwise, this competition can, with this new format, aiming for that, I think top 8, isn't it? Aiming for the top 8 is huge. And it's something that we should be doing again because once the FA Cup starts coming in and the League Cup heats up and all this sort of stuff, that week off that we have where we're not playing a game and all of the people are doing the qualifiers, that's going to be huge. But I think just making sure that, a Parrott early goal might be a kick in the nuts, but, we should be beating teams like this if we want to be serious about this competition. I'm not saying that RZ aren't serious, because they've qualified for the same competition that we have, so we're not above them in that merit at all. But I just think we have to be beating these teams if we want to go far.
Definitely, and obviously trying to brush them aside will be very helpful, Ben, on Thursday. How do you kind of see it going down? Is it going to be one of those that's going to be an easy win, or do you think, obviously, like Jay said, obviously with the vendetta with Troy Parrott, how do you kind of see it going down?
Yeah, I think Jay summed it up quite well there, to be honest, because I think both teams that we played so far have been arguably 2 of the more favourable fixtures in the group, have shown that they can cause us problems. I think Karabag, obviously, we obviously got that early red card, but they definitely came without any real fear. And caused us problems, and our quality kind of shone through on the day, as it did in Hungary as well. In terms of obviously, Troy coming back is an interesting narrative and storyline. He'll have a lot to prove. I've always thought that maybe Tottenham wasn't the right place for him, but I always thought that he is someone that I think will have a good career, and I wouldn't be surprised to see him go on and do what. Obviously, he hasn't set the world on fire at AZ yet, but he had a very good season last year at what was the other Dutch club that he was at? I can't even remember now. It will come to me. But yeah, there's something definitely building there in terms of his career. In terms of how we go, I think we've got it right so far in the first 2 games in terms of that balance of giving those young players opportunities, but having enough players out there with the experience. I thought Porro was excellent when we played it in Hungary at Ferencváros. Obviously, Basuma in that game as well had a good one. Sarr will come back into that midfield. And again, I know Sarr's only 21, but in relative terms to some of the other players like Gray, Bergvall, Moore, Lancashire, he's got that experience. It'd be good to see Richarlison back as well, how fit he is, whether he will play, what did he get, 15 minutes on Saturday? Hopefully he gets significant minutes or starts the game, because I think Solanke's kind of proved his worth in weight in gold so far in terms of the system, that you want to manage him as much as possible as well. Obviously, potentially Wilson Odobert might be back, but the player that I'm really excited to see, and look, we've spoken about Mikey Moore a lot, and Lucas Bergvall is someone that really excites me, but Archie Gray, I think in the first couple of Europa League games, playing in different positions, right back, centre back, left back, he's played everywhere across the back line. He's been really, really exciting, and I think out of all of them, and I know he's got a lot of match experience under his belt, which is huge at that age. Basically played every game for Leeds last season at an intense level of going for the title and just missing out on the playoffs. That matters a lot. I think he's taken it to like a duck to water. Look, when he came on, I know it was the game state in which you come on obviously matters, right? He came on, we were 4-1 up on Saturday, but to do that little bit of skill in the box and just get away when they were trying to win the ball back, he's just, for me, out of every youngster we've got, and you'd expect so because we paid a lot of money for him, right? But I think he looks super ready. I'd like to see him maybe get a go in midfield, but I do think he'll be used because we haven't got Jed Spence to rely on, and I think Dragusin is obviously back now. It's only one game, but I think he probably will play in defence, whether it's at left back or centre half again, maybe to give Romero Van der Ven a rest, or right back to give Porro a rest. But I'm just looking forward to seeing him play.
I can't lie, he did give me a bit of a heart attack when he put it across the box. I was like, please don't come on in these few minutes. And
composure, though. It was composure.
Yeah, it's very bold. I'll put it like that.
I like the bravery that he's got, and that's kind of what, I think a lot of these youngsters, and we saw it with Bergvall a lot through pre-season, and obviously with Moore when he played in the Europa League and came on at Old Trafford, that they've got the balls to like try these things, try to go and do it. So they'll be ready. They'll be eager to kind of prove themselves. So I think we'll kind of mix it up. I wouldn't be surprised if Johnson still plays, because we haven't really got, we've got a lot of wingers, but in terms of that right wing slot and what he's able to do, I think it's a good opportunity for him to just, I know he didn't score on Saturday, but to kind of just keep that rhythm of playing well going. So I wouldn't be surprised to see him start. I think it will be quite similar to what we've done in the other two games, but these are probably the strongest opposition obviously we've faced. So I
think Brennan's also still learning and still improving, and if there's anything that can up his confidence or make him a bit more of a leader on the pitch, if there's like a load of the other newer ones coming on, that can give him some sort of confidence that you can't really get elsewhere as well.
Yeah, match experiences, but well, obviously he's got a lot of match experience under the belt, but that's huge. That rhythm of playing games, just to kind of find that form and that trust from the manager as well. That's what's got him to this point. I was literally just reading just now, he did an interview where he was talking about Ryan Mason and kind of giving him a lot of credit for the uptick in form he's had, a lot of individual work, hard work and training in terms of different types of finishes and dribbling and all stuff like that. So I think that, again, with someone like him, don't want to give him the kiss of death, but he kind of rarely gets injured, always kind of looks fresh and sharp. I don't think playing him on Thursday, I'd be absolutely fine with that. Out of all the attackers that we've got, I'd rather see him kind of maintain that starting place, because what he does for us on the team when we are able to hit teams on the break is vital. So, and again, just to get him back on the score sheet and hopefully start another run of, 6 in 6 or 7 in 7 if you count the Wales goals.
The only thing, just to add, the only thing that concerns me, and this is me going against my own goalkeeper union, so I might not be able to play ever again, but I would probably on Thursdays take a risk and not play Vic, only because I just don't think he's good for the young players. His antics and some of the stuff he does in the Premier League, and you can see Romero and Van der Ven just kind of shrug it off and don't mind. But we look at that incident with Bergvall. I can't remember which game it was.
Leicester,
yeah. That really, to me, Bergvall ran back and got the ball. It just seems like, as well, I don't know. If I was a young player, I'd be worried about the response to anything I did. And we're talking about Archie Gray trying to do something. If you're trying to do that, you do need encouragement, and it's for the manager to say to you, "Oh, this is what you need to do." And again, going back to if Vic's playing all these games, that's good. But are we gonna, Austin and Whiteman have been at our club for a very long time, and they've progressed through. But where are they ever gonna, where are they ever gonna do? And Austin looked good in pre-season, so. I think that's the only thing, just for those youngsters. I just think Vic can be a bit volatile, and that's his personality, and that's fine. But I'd also like to see another goalkeeping option in the club, because at the minute, I'm terrified that if Vic gets injured, it's going to be Fraser Forster, and him falling over for penalties still haunts me to this day. So yeah.
No, you make a valid point. I didn't really see it in that kind of respect. And like you say, we always have discussions when the game's happening. We go, "Why is Vic screaming at him for? Like, what's he done wrong there?"
Vic stood on his line doing nothing and then shouting at someone else. It's just,
No, Vic was the first person to pick everyone up after that goal on the weekend, and I really, really appreciated that. Like, everyone else had their heads in their hands, and he was like, "No, do not indulge in this feeling right here. You get back up there," and he literally got you doggy, and like everyone was like picking them up and being like, "We're going." When really, of all the people, the goalie is sometimes the one. Well, a lot of the time after a goal to get their heads down.
Yeah.
But I do agree. I do slightly agree with you. Maybe. Hopefully Ange doesn't put it like that to the youngsters, because they do need to learn if they are going to be playing with him on a bigger stage. But yeah, that can impact someone's confidence really early.
Yeah, I think he'll go with Vicario. I do think he will, but I think they're both like it's good, like good points. I actually think that I know he's made mistakes at points this season, but I actually think, like Jess kind of said there, I think Vicario's leadership from the back is actually really important. I was frustrated. I was like annoyed when Vicario did that to Bergvall in that moment in the Leicester game, because it was his first game, and actually Bergvall was put under so much pressure by Romero. And, you know, that's the experienced World Cup winner. That's the one that you should probably be having a go at if you're having a go at anyone. And like you said, he didn't exactly come off his line to kind of diffuse that situation. But I think Jess is right. On Saturday, if a goal goes in, he's the one. Like, I feel like we got used to for years for quite a lot with. And I love Hugo Lloris, and this isn't a slight on him at all. But there'll be times where we can see goals, and kind of Lloris is just there, like, almost like throwing his arms up in the air at other players, whereas Vicario is like pointing out what people did and like, why aren't you helping me? Or he's the one that's kind of getting everybody rallied to go again if we go a goal down. So I do think his leadership from the back with those young players might be helpful. But we definitely look. I agree with you. Like, I thought Brandon Austin was really impressive in pre-season, but if they don't rate them and aren't giving them opportunities, we just need to go and buy a proper backup goalkeeper, because it puts a bit of pressure on Vicario as well. To know that if he maybe doesn't perform, there's someone else there that can actually come in, although it's not an ideal situation, as obviously we saw with Arsenal with Ramsdale and Raya. But yeah, no, they do. I think that should be a priority signing either in January or next summer. I love Fraser Forster. He's obviously great to have around the club, and he's like best mates with Sonny as well, isn't he? And I also don't want to let him go, but I also don't want him to come in.
There are some people who need to be in the team just to be good vibes. For
it's like Scott Carson at Man City, isn't it? That's what I want. That's what I want him to be. Just like, you're not going to play, but just there, like having a good time. Yeah, like the uncle of the group almost.
No, I hear you. It's a good point to obviously raise and talk about. But hopefully we get that job done there. But then, Jess, at the weekend, obviously we have Palace away. Again, another London club. So it'd be interesting to see how this one goes down. Do you think it would be the same, obviously starting 11? Because we know in the week Andrew probably make some tinkers and some changes. Do you think against Palace it'll probably be the same sort of starting 11?
Oh, it's one of those things where we do have a lot of choice. I wouldn't mind Richie starting. However, what I think about Richie is that he reminds me, not similar style of player at all, but he reminds me of when Lucas Moura used to come on, and the energy that would just like rip through the pitch, doesn't matter what time, at what point during the game, you just have this like loose cannon that you just absolutely could not ignore. And I just find that other teams like hate him. So I wonder if he's like more of a super sub vibe, one that's dangerous for getting goals, but just injecting that like absolute terror of energy. I don't know. I don't think I want any changes because it went so well. I would like to see Madders on the score sheet. I think it would kind of further prove that we have this capability in the mid, not because I think people are mistaking the tactical change for him not playing well enough and someone else coming on, and that's absolutely not it. I think it was a perfect tactical change, but not because Madders wasn't good enough. It was just, let's switch the game up. So yeah, I think that's my opinion.
No, I think, like you said, because we played so well, even when we made that change, even at the start of the match, do you really want to mix things up, Jay? Do you want to keep it with that same starting 11?
I echo what Jess says. I think that starting 11's, in my opinion, our best 11. The 2-10s is a big thing for me. Palace play a 5-back, so we're going to need as much creativity as possible. The only thing that will be different is obviously Palace will be at home, so they may be a little bit more attacking than they normally are. But yeah, I don't want to see any changes. Obviously, you don't change a winning formula. Obviously, maybe the only change would be to have Sarr start, but then that contradicts everything we've said on this podcast about how good he is off the bench, and Kulusevski playing in the middle. Because if Sarr starts, you're going to have to sacrifice Maddison or Johnson for if we want Decky to start. I think again, Palace are a team that we need to be beating. We can have our wobbles against the big six clubs, but these are the clubs that have every right to beat us. And if we don't turn up on our day and we underestimate them, they will beat us. But we need to be beating them, and these are games where we need to be making statements. And I think the statement was made at the weekend against West Ham, and that was the thing. And that was a lot of the naysayers in the fan groups were obviously saying, that shows the level we're at, that Brighton are better than us. And it's like, if we want to be that Big Six team that we proclaim that we are, we need to be beating the teams that are outside the Big Six. And then, we might struggle against the top boys, but we need to be winning that game, only because if we don't, my granddad won't let me hear the end of it. And if you can see the Palace shirt, I've moved it. Yeah, I've put it behind another top for the week. It's hidden away, but the Palace top is up there. But we've got to win. We've got to win.
Like you said, obviously the Brighton game was annoying because we played so well and then threw it away. Ben, we don't want that happening against Palace, do we?
No, definitely not. I agree with both Jess and Jay. Like, I don't want to see any changes. I think that you've got to... Palace obviously playing tonight against Forest. We don't know how they're going to get on in that one, but they've been really low on confidence, really low on form this season. It really hasn't clicked in the same way since they sold Elise. I think it's one of those ones where we've just got to go over there, get on the ball, dominate the game, and we'll create enough chances to hopefully win it. Of course, they've got threats. They've got Eze, they've got Nketiah, they've got Kamada as well. But it's one of those ones that I don't think any changes are really necessary. We just go there and just play our football, and we should be able to win. I think Jess makes a good point about Richie, though. I think that I was thinking about this earlier with Solanke. Todibo and Kilman. Todibo especially had a nightmare against Dominic Solanke on Saturday. His physicality, his agility, his ability to win duels. He's so important in setting us off on the counter-attack as well. When you've got the runners ahead of him that he does, he's able to pick out that pass. And the way that he must tire defenders out and draw them out of position and run them ragged for the 90 minutes or 70, 80 minutes or whatever. And then you've got Richie to come off the bench as well against a tired centre-back pairing who is just all about, right, I'm going to get into you. I'm going to kind of create chaos. I don't think for the way that we play, obviously Dom and Richie are very different. I think Dom's a much better all-round centre-forward than Richie, and I love Richarlison, but everything is a lot smoother with Solanke. Like his passing, his ability to win the duels, like his finishing is a bit better as well. But to really run teams ragged and open them up, and then to have Richie come on and do the same thing for 20 minutes, I think is something that could be really important for us this season. I think he might actually thrive in that role. Hopefully we see Richie start on Thursday to just get him some minutes in the legs. And then if we need him against Palace to come on and make an impact, he definitely can, because he's one of those players that you can just see with what he was able to do last season. If he's able to keep himself fit, even with more limited minutes, because we've now actually got that proper number 9 there, I still think he'll be really impactful for us throughout the season, hopefully in Europe as much as anything.
Definitely. It's nice to have all these different options off the bench, and these players be slightly different, which I don't think we've really had before in that kind of same kind of level of players. It's always been, here's the first team and then let's drop to the subs. But it's quite a nice dynamic and a headache, I guess, for Anne to have. But it's been amazing tonight, obviously, to dissect obviously that win against West Ham, look ahead to the fixtures coming up, and I want to go around the table, say our goodbyes and thank you. So Jess, thank you once again for coming on tonight. Where can everybody find you doing your thing?
I'm on Radio 1 every Sunday night, 11 till midnight. Also do chill out anthems if you want something more chilled. I present BBC Introducing London on a Thursday night, 8 till 10. BBC Sounds can catch up on all of that jazz. And I also do Hits Radio Chilled, but that's not as fun as the others. So yeah, come join me on the others.
No, thank you, Jess. Really appreciate it. And also, Ben, where can everybody find you doing your thing as well? Thank you for coming on.
No, pleasure. Really, really enjoyed it. YouTube, TikTok, just talking about Spurs, rambling about Spurs over there. So go and check that out. Just my name. You'll be able to find me. But yeah, really enjoyed it as always. Nice one.
No, perfect. Thank you. And Jay as well, where can everybody find you doing your thing? And thank you as well.
If I can be bothered, you can find me at JJ Season. That's where I do all my content, so streaming and YouTube and stuff. But I can't remember the last time I did anything. But if you want my awful Spurs opinions or NFL opinions, you can find me at JJ Johnson 26 on Twitter.
No, thank you, Jay. I appreciate it. And also a big shout out to Anthony as well, that celebrates 31 months of membership on the channel. So thank you very much. Apologies, I didn't bring it up at the start, but I didn't want to hide anybody's faces. So thank you very much. But hopefully, obviously, we'll be back on Wednesday with Wes and Nelson, obviously, to do the Hotspur huddle. I'm sure Wes will try and get the tactical board out to kind of show where we managed to concede that goal at the weekend. And then obviously next Monday, Hollie's Hotspurs Live. We'll be back again. Hopefully we'll be dissecting another win, because that'd be fabulous. But until next time, come on, you Spurs.